we always say this now, is that the very best leaders are goat farmers because they raise the herd of goats around them. I think that's the very best way to be successful is hire people around you that you see something in. Even though health and wellness was not something that at the time Martha Stewart's company was invested in until they invested in me, she saw something in me at that time that said, I can bring out the greatness in this person. And by virtue of bringing out the greatness in this person, my business is going to be great as well.
Welcome back to the Culture Work Podcast, everyone, where we have real conversations with leaders that are reimagining how culture drives business success. My name is Chester Elton, and with me is my dear friend, my co-author, and he writes these intros, by the way. He wants to be introduced as my partner in leadership mischief.
Yeah,
and his name is Adrian Gostick.
I don't know if our wonderful producers who gave me that title, but we are so geeked. Speaking of our producers, I've never seen our producers so geeked about meeting a guest today as today, because we've got really one of the most fascinating culture builders we've had on the show. Brent Ridge is a physician, entrepreneur. He's the co-founder of Beekman 1802. It's a brand built on goat milk, but powered by purpose. So Brent, welcome to the Culture Works podcast.
Oh, so great to be here.
Well, under Brent's leadership, Beekman 1802 has become a beacon for clean beauty, sustainability, and community-powered commerce. So today we're going to talk about leading with empathy, scaling culture with authenticity, and what it means to turn a personal vision, like Brent has, into this global business.
Brent, your journey takes us from medical school to Martha Stewart's inner circle, how fascinating that must have been, and ultimately to your farm in Sharon Springs, New York, which isn't too far from our lake house up in upstate New York in the Adirondacks. So people may also recognize you and your husband, Josh. You built a global brand that's wonderful, but you've been on the fabulous Beekman Boys, and you won the amazing race. You have so many great stories to share. Now, one of the things that I love about the culture that you've built is, and you're very upfront with this, you build it on kindness. In fact, this, by the way, is my Beekman's Kindness baseball cap, available online for all of you that want another one. Tell me how that happened. I mean, your story, you had your practice in New York, you bought this place upstate. How did you get, though, where you really wanted to focus on kindness as building the brand?
Well, I think it has always been very important to me personally. I grew up in a very rural area in North Carolina and very religious, evangelical. And so the idea of love thy neighbor and kind of the golden rule, that was just always a part of my upbringing. So it's always been very important to me. And even after medical school, when I was doing research at Harvard in the genetics of aging, we spent so much time looking through ancestral documents and finding families where extreme longevity existed. And we were trying to find that one bit of DNA that might contribute to their longevity. And what we ultimately found after the study went on for decades was that it really wasn't anything genetic. It was how you were treating people, how you were socializing, the amount of personal connections that you had. So kindness and wellness, that kind of intersection of those two things, kindness as wellness, has always been very important to me. And even when I was in practice at Mount Sinai Hospital, so much about preventative medicine is teaching people to make the right decisions in life, about what their diet is and what their exercise routine is. But I would always talk to people about how important how you treat other people are too. I would say in terms of a health promoter, it's equally as important as a good diet and the exercise that you do. And the way I got to Beekman 1802 was that I had left Mount Sinai, which is where I was practicing, and had gone back to business school at NYU. And then after that, went to work at Martha Stewart, head up her health and wellness division with a new division that the company was starting. And in 2006, my partner, Josh, and I were just driving in upstate New York, looking for, it was a kind of a weekend getaway from the city. And on that particular vacation, we were in Sharon Springs, New York, this very tiny town of 547 people. And we came across this farm property that had a for sale sign in the yard. And we just decided on our drive back to the city, we're going to buy that place. So again, this was 2006. So The economy was amazing. We were like at high places in our career. We said, okay, we'll put cash in everything that we'd ever earned, took out $1 million mortgage to buy this property that we were going to use on the weekends. So that's the type of city people we were back then. And, one weekend we came up and there was a handwritten note in our mailbox from Farmer John. And he said, I am a local farmer. I grew up in this area. I grew up on a dairy farm and I have a herd of 100 goats and I'm losing my farm property. Could I please bring them to your property to graze? He knew that, we were only dealing on the weekends because, we're two city guys buy farm property in a small town. Everybody knows about it, right? And so we invited him to come. We said, it's fine. You can stay here. There's another little cottage on the property. You can live here, bring the goats. And we say that was the original act of kindness that actually started Beekman 1802 because cut to 2 years later when the big recession hit in 2008, we both lost our jobs in the city within a month of one another and decamped to the farm. And we had to figure out a way to save this farm and these 100 homeless goats. And we were determined, so many people were walking away from their real estate purchase that time. And we were determined that we would not do that. And so we Googled, what can we make with goat milk? And we started making goat milk soap. And that's how the company started 16 years ago with two key ingredients. We say goat milk and kindness.
Oh my gosh, what a great story. Yeah, we do. You deserve a round of applause. One of my favorite movies is the Chevy Chase movie Funny Farm. And, and I live out in the country too, and I'm a, little fish out of water as well. But, I love that you made it work. And I love that, we're little, city creatures out of water, but.
That's why we get compared to Funny Farm and Baby Boom with Diane Keaton.
Absolutely. Both 80s classic. Yeah. Love it. Okay. So what did the early days, this is a great personal story. What did the early days teach you about leadership and resilience? Because you're not only these 100 goats you're running, but you've got other things you're trying to do to build this business. What did you learn?
Well, in our book, Go Wisdom, we talk about lots of the different proverbs that have guided us as we've grown our business and scale globally. But the most important one to us has always been love thy neighbor. And, we call all of our customers neighbors. We don't have customer service. It's called neighbor services. And the reason that is such a central tenet to us is very early on in the company, when we were really struggling to get by, not only struggling on how to live and work on a farm, grow our own food because we had no money. We had to grow our own food to, survive because we were trying to save it. How to raise chickens, how to raise pigs, how to raise cows. We were learning from our neighbors. This is a very agricultural community we live in. And even when we got to the point where we got our first big order for the bars of soap, which was the only thing we were making at that time, we got this huge order from a company called Anthropology. We could not get the order done in time. Like we were trying to do it all ourselves because we couldn't afford to hire other people. Our margins were super slim. And we went to the local post office where we had been sitting at our GTC packages. So I was in cahoots with the local postmaster. And we said, Maria, I don't know what we're going to do because we cannot get this order done in time. And so Maria said, you know what? Because of course she works at the post office, she knew everybody in town. And she said, I'm just going to start calling people. I know lots of people who are retired or stay-at-home moms, and some call and see who's willing to come over. And so she did. And for the next 4 weeks, we had neighbors at our dining room table, basically 24 hours a day, helping us wrap bars of soap to get ready for that order. And they did it for free. Because it was community building. And even in a small town like this, people still are in their own world and they're worried about their own day-to-day lives, and they don't, they don't have time or think they have time to socialize and connect. It's just the world that we live in. I think so many people say, wow, this is my connection. It's like an old-fashioned quilting bee. I'm going to come and I'm going to sit around this big dining room table and I'm going to wrap soap for a few hours. I'm going to go home and I'll come back the next day, and it became a thing. And that's why, neighbors and community building has always been really critical to our company. We say Even though now we are around the globe, we say we grew neighbor by neighbor by neighbor. Even to this day, we fight for every neighbor who comes into the company.
I love that story of connection and community. You lose that so often. We live in big cities. You don't know, you live in an apartment building. You don't know anybody on your floor, right? And then you've got this barn raising or quilting thing, whatever. By the way, Brent mentioned this book. It's Goat Wisdom, How to Build a Truly Great Business. Came out July 1st. Anybody can buy one copy, buy two, one for you and one for a friend. It's a great investment. I'm really curious though, because, here you went from big city doctor, then you're working with, Martha Stewart, big global brand, and then you go out to the country. What was it in your experience with Martha Stewart that you were able to take from that experience to build your, goat business?
Well, I mean, Martha is a brilliant businesswoman, and she's very exacting. She knows exactly how she wants to do it, and as she should, because her name is on the company. So it should be everything that Martha Stewart believes in. And what I learned most from her was that you have to hire good people around you. And I would say that Martha, as amazing as she is, she has even more amazing people around her. She's been such a maverick in terms of creativity. And I would say when I was at the company, I was starting a new division of the company devoted to health and wellness. So that was outside the realm of what they had done before. But everybody else at the company, or a majority of the people at the company, came from RISD, Rhode Island School of Design, just the best in their field. And I think that's what's really critical as you're growing a company. Try to find the very best people to surround you. And then as you become a leader, and we always say this now, is that the very best leaders are goat farmers because they raise the herd of goats around them. And I think that's the very best way to be successful is hire people around you that you see something in. Even though health and wellness was not something that at the time Martha Stewart's company was invested in until they invested in me, she saw something in me at that time that said, I can bring out the greatness in this person. And by virtue of bringing out the greatness in this person, my business is going to be great as well. And I think that was my biggest lesson from Martha. We're still great friends today. I'll be doing her podcast in a few days as well. And but that's a lasting lesson I learned from her.
Well, say hi from Chess. He's got a bit of a crush. So
I was going to say, Adrian was looking for the ultimate partner as he started, writing and so on. Couldn't find him, hired me. It's worked out okay.
Hey, let's move into our next section, culture-driven. That's what we're about. It's the Culture Works podcast. So a culture-driven consumer brand, because, a lot of brands, they are consumer-driven. They focus so much on the customer experience, as you should. But you say, look, you got to have purpose in your culture. Culture drives your brand, not the other way around. So talk a little bit about how you get purpose embedded in a culture and not just in the messaging, the posters on the wall, but in how people show up every day.
Yeah, well, yes. And I think this is so critical. For us, kindness is the purpose. And we always think from the very beginning, when we started the company, we were just trying to survive. We never thought that we were going to grow a big company. We were just like, how can we pay the mortgage on the farm? And so purpose has always been secondary to our own survival, the most important thing. And even today, we see how we can spread kindness as the reason we're in business. And if we are successful at spreading kindness, then people are going to buy our product. Okay. So we think of selling the product as a way to support more kindness. And what's brilliant about the industry that we happen to be in, which is, the skin health, we call it skin health, other people call it the beauty industry, is that people are really invested in their appearance and how things feel on their skin. And for us, we're like, wow, this is a really incredible way for us to insert kindness into everyone's day and remind them every morning before they go out the door or every night before they go out to bed when they're doing their routine, how important kindness is. So our products become a reminder for them about how important kindness is at Beekman. And when we started the company, 16 years ago now, it was very easy for all of our employees to understand that was the DNA of the company because we had, for a long time, 3 employees and then we had 5 employees. Like we were small for a very long time. And then even as we started to grow, we were always trying to think, how can we make sure that as we grow and people no longer have kind of the geographic connection to the company that we started with, how can we make sure that happens? So the first thing that we did was we developed a curriculum, what we call the kindness curriculum. And so every new employee that would come on, when they would go through their employee training manual, there was a whole curriculum on kindness and about what it means to be a good neighbor. And over time, that became so popular among our team members that we actually turned it into a consumer facing experience. So then when people decided, because people come to our little kindness shop, which is what I call our shop on Main Street in Sheriff Springs, they make these pilgrimages from all over the world because it's like the origin of the company. And so we said, okay, if people are making this pilgrimage, how can we enhance their lives because they took the time out or made a vacation out of coming to see us? And so we developed this kindness curriculum that was customer facing. So people could come, they would have a full day immersion into what it means to be kind and how they can incorporate more kindness into their lives. And then when the pandemic hit and people could no longer come to Sharon Springs as easily, and at the time, we had no idea how long, the pandemic was going to last and, we were going to be shut down. We said, okay, why don't we create kindness coaches? We had already developed a platform on our website where people could talk with our estheticians and learn about their skin and what products were best for them. So we already have the system in place. We said, why don't we just find some kindness coaches, like behavioral coaches who were already working on people with enhancing their lives. And so now people can come to our website and book these 20 to 30-minute free sessions with these kindness coaches. And it's a free session, and the kindness coach gives them exercises they can go off into their life and try to incorporate more kindness. And then after the pandemic, we're like, okay, and our company was just growing by leaps and bounds during the pandemic because you had a captive audience, right? And they were on Instagram and they were on TikTok and they were learning about skincare and trying to make better decisions. And we're like, okay, is this an opportunity to go even bigger, particularly within our own company? Like, how are we going to expand this bigger and make sure that the company culture remains the same? And there was this new company called kindworks.ai. And it was started by this gentleman named Daniel Lozado, who was from Oxford University. And he was researching AI long before any of us knew what AI was. And he had developed this system called kindworks.ai that integrates into your employee platforms, like Slack or Outlook. And every day, the system gives you on how you can do some kind act for another employee on your team. And what's great about it is you can actually do a kind act on demand. So you can say, give me an act of kindness right now, I need it. You can schedule it and say, every other day or every Tuesday, please give me an exercise. And when the exercise pops up, it'll say, this exercise will take you 1 second, 3 seconds, whatever. So you know how much time you're committing. And it's very random. So it'll say like, oh, I see that you have not connected to Chester ever, which is important when you've got a company that's, employees all over and some people don't know each other. Send Chester a note saying, oh, Chester, hi, I haven't talked to you before. I just wanted to say hi. We're, both working at Beekman. And it's just little random acts of kindness like that. And then it learns over time what acts of kindness most resonate with you. They can see that employees who engage more frequently with the kindness prompts are happier in the company. And for those employees that actually have a direct line to sales, those employees actually have higher revenue generation than employees who act less frequently with the kindness prompts. So it's a really, really powerful tool. And it has just really made sure that in our company culture, people have this constant reminder. Because even if you happen to be one of the people who have not been engaging with it as frequently as others, when you get that message from someone else or someone comes
Yeah.
out and tells you did a great job in that because they were prompted to do that, it makes you feel better about the place where you work.
Well, and that ripple effect, right? You got it, you want to give it, and so on. That's fascinating. And you give away this little course on your website. Adrian, you and I found over the years, and we've been doing this a long time, purpose-driven companies that really get it do better. And boy, you've integrated it in just like every way I can think of. Now, in your book, you tell a great story. You guys start to grow. Clearly, you can't make all the soap and all the stuff yourself. So you've got to expand, but you want to keep that DNA. You want to keep the essence of Beekman. Tell us the story about going to that trade show. I mean, you had the opportunity to say, look, you can buy generic goat soap and just slap your label on it, but that's not your culture, is it? Tell us that story and how, as you become this global brand, you've kept that local kindness, that local neighbor feeling in Beekman.
Well, we do it in a couple of different ways. One, because we are a company that is devoted to sensitive skin and skin health, kindness is very important. And so we talk about being kind to the skin. So in every product, if you look at the INCI list, which is the official ingredient list on the back of every product, kindness is actually listed as an ingredient in the product. So that's one way that we remind people. But one of the great examples, or there's two great examples I can think about that were really employee driven. And this comes back to culture and the culture that you instill in your company. And both of these showed up during the pandemic. One, when the pandemic shut down our retail shop in Sharon Springs, we had, there about 6 employees. And, most retail companies were furloughing, because there was no revenue coming from these sales retail location. And, we didn't want to furlough anybody. And someone came up with the idea because at the time, our neighbor services, or customer service, was getting lots of calls because the business was growing so rapidly. And they were noticing that the people who were calling in weren't just wanting a solution for answer to a product question. They wanted someone to talk to, right? This is during the pandemic. People were very isolated. And so one of our team members from our neighbor services program said, oh, I wonder if we can set up a phone bank among the employees in our kindness shop that after we answer whatever is the initiated reason that someone called in, if we get the sense that they are just needing a friendly voice to chat with, we can then transfer them over to the kindness shop phone bank. And those employees can just talk and chat. That's their purpose. And sometimes, because we track the length of phone calls, sometimes they were on the phone for 45 minutes, an hour with people, just making sure that people didn't feel isolated at that time. And you might think, okay, well, there was no return on investment in that. But honestly, there was, because if you look at our lifetime value of our customers or the repeat order rates of our customers, those customers are so sticky because they feel like we are never trying to sell them a product. We're trying to sell them on more kindness in their life, no matter what we're doing. And that adds value to the company long term. The other thing that happened during the pandemic is that we were getting ready to roll out in Ulta Beauty right as the pandemic. And that's a big communication strategy for any company, right? Because you're trying to touch 1,500 Ulta stores and their employees and educate them about about your product. And right as we were rolling out at Ulta was when the shutdowns happened, and people could come into the store, but it was very few people could come into the store at a time. So we could not go into the store. Our field team could not go into the store and educate its team members about the product and brand and whatnot. And so we had to come up with an idea of how we could make sure that all the Ulta employees felt and knew that we were a brand about kindness. And of course, at the time, so many small mom and pop shops, bakery shops around the country had no customers.
Right.
And so we're like, okay, how can we help them out on the same time that we can help ourselves out and then also educate the Ulta team members about kindness? And so our team members at Beekman scoured the internet and found small Main Street mom and pop bakeries near every Ulta store that we were launching in. We were launching at 500 stores. And so they found these small mom and pop bakeries, and then we contracted with those mom and shop bakeries to bake big batches of cookies that they would then deliver to the Ulta stores on the day that our inventory arrived in the stores. Because what's better than goat milk and cookies, right?
I'm going to say nothing. Nothing's better.
Right. There's nothing. And so that it accomplished so many things. One, it helped out those Main Street businesses, which are dear to our heart. That's why
Right.
we wrote. And it connected those Ulta employees to those Main Street shops, which many of them had never heard of. And it represented everything that Beekman stands for, about being a good neighbor, about supporting people in your community, about the power of kindness. And still to this day, when we launch new products, cookies are often one of the things that we send to Beekman, to the Ulta team when we launch the product. We're like, okay, the cookies are coming, and they get excited. They get as excited about it as they get the free product.
We've used baked goods before too, Brent, and nobody has ever called and said that was offensive. Yeah. Everybody's excited to receive. Yeah. I wanted to talk a little bit about authenticity because that's something that gets bandied around a lot. You, I mean, with your book, with your business, with who you are, it's clear you believe in kindness. You're in a very tough place sometimes there's political divisions and this and the other, but no, you're being kind no matter what. You are living your values. So now coach a leader out there who's listening to this and says, it's all good, Brent, but this leading from values is a little soft for my world. Too idealistic. What kind of advice do you have for somebody that may be wanting to do this, but thinks it's maybe too soft?
Well, let me just set the record straight. Kindness is not soft. It is hard work, and you have to invest in it. I think a lot of times people might think kindness is soft because they are embarrassed about kindness. They don't want to do kindness because people are embarrassed to give kindness. Because when you go out of your way to do something kind for someone, even if it's giving them a compliment about their work performance, you're worried about what type of reaction you're going to get from them. And that's a personal thing. People, are concerned about their own ego. And it's really hard sometimes to give and do acts of kindness. But it is really hard work, but it is hard work that pays off in ways that you could never imagine. And I think what's really important is not only is kindness important and productive in the work ecosystem, it's important and productive in your consumer ecosystem. It's important and productive in your personal community where you're serving. And it also, as I said before, kindness is wellness. And I'm saying this as a physician and someone in the skincare industry. And you probably know this, Chester, when you give or receive an act of kindness, it changes your body on a cellular level.
Yep.
And we all know when you receive this act of kindness, when you give an act of kindness, you kind of get that glowy feeling, And that glowy feeling is not just something that's happening by divine intervention, or maybe it is if you believe that God created every cell in your body. It's happening because you have surges of serotonin, you're having surges of dopamine, you're having surges of oxytocin. And those surges of those neurochemicals are what's causing that glowy feeling. And those surges are also making you healthier on a cellular level. It's making your skin healthier. So for all those people who think that kindness is a soft thing in your business, it's the hardest thing you can do, but the most rewarding on every aspect from a productivity, from an employee health standpoint. So if you're not doing kindness, you're doing your company a disservice.
Yeah. So tell me, Brent, every time you and I talk, you're just so genuine. You're just so easy to talk to. You and Josh have a global brand. I mean, you won the great race. How do you stay grounded? I mean, it would be so easy for you to be above the fray. And do you know what I mean? It just doesn't seem to affect you. How do you stay so grounded?
I think we may have probably been just humble people to begin with because we both grew up in very rural areas. We both were influenced by our upbringings in the church. But I think, when we lost our jobs in 2008, we were doubly humbled because, at that point, if you are living and working in New York City and you are at peaks of your career, you are in New York City, even now, you are defined by what you do.
Exactly.
First question everybody asks you. So when you lose your job, your identity is gone. Like you are humbled. And I think that, because we started this portion of our lives and our careers at that moment in our life, I think we've just always maintained that idea of humbleness and that it can be taken away at any moment. And, when we started the company 16 years ago, that was just at the point where Facebook was switching from being a tool to connect with college roommates and, high school classmates and things like that to a business tool. I think we were probably the very first farm ever on Facebook, and one of the very first companies that were using Facebook. And so people were invested in us from the very beginning. They were invested in the struggle of growing Beekman 1802 from the very beginning. And so that's just how we've always run the company, like being very transparent about the triumphs and the tribulations and the mistakes and whatnot. That's just how we've always thought about the company. And I think it makes our company stronger too, because our employees are not afraid to make mistakes. Um, the kindness that is part of the company is like, yes, people will make mistakes. And guess what? We're going to point out the mistakes because that's the kind thing. Letting investor, letting employee think that they're doing something, or maybe not even figuring out what they're doing and not being their best self as employee, that's not a kind thing. Um, the ultimate act of kindness that you do as an employer is to want your employee to be their greatest. And that's true kindness.
Excellent.
I have a feeling like this little like field of dreams, and people just find their way to your farm. I'm guessing, just driving down, and they just kind of pulled or sense that they should go down this lane. I have a feeling, and
What is funny now with employees, like people find us because they love this of the company.
yeah,
But people still drive by the farm all the time. Farmer John calls them beak peepers, leaf peepers, but they're beak peepers.
Okay, Brent, this is the wrap up. This is the lightning round. Okay, here we go. One leadership principle that has never failed you.
Make everyone around you a goat.
Excellent. A book or piece of media that changed your worldview.
Oh, there's a book called The Originals by Adam Grant. And it gave me such insight into who I am as an entrepreneur. And whenever new executives come into the company, they're trying to understand how do I work with a founder. I say this is the best book that describes who a founder is and what is a founder personality. I think it's just a fantastic book.
Excellent. Finish this sentence. A thriving culture is.
A thriving culture is a culture in which everyone in the ecosystem is successful. And I think what you have to realize is that when you have an employee and you're trying to help them reach their greatest potential, you have to first identify with them what their measure of success is and help them achieve that measure of success, knowing that their measure of success, when they reach it, may not involve you anymore. But by being invested in them being their best self, for the whole time that you have them, they're going to be the most maximally optimized employee that you have.
Excellent. Well, his book is Goat Wisdom: How to Build a Truly Great Business. I got the advanced reader's copy. That's because I know the guy. So I'm proud to say that. I have one of your bars of soap here, and it's in 2-point type. But yes, in the ingredients, it does say kindness. Brent, it's been great to have you. Adrian, take us home.
I feel better about the world after speaking to you, not just this day. So thank you so much for all you're doing. You prove that purpose and performance are partners. And where can people learn more about Beekman 1802 and your work? Where would you send them?
Well, of course, you can go Wisdom. It's available at bookstores everywhere and at beekman1802.com. Or they can follow us on social media. Our personal social media is at Josh and Brent. So find us there.
Excellent. Hey, listen, it's been a delight, Brent, to have you on the show. A big fan, as you know. Hope our paths cross often. And thanks to all of you who tuned into the Culture Work podcast. We know you got a lot of things on your plate and you decided to spend some time with us. So we're grateful for you too. Take care, everybody. And thanks again, Brent. What a delight.
Absolutely.